way to do great work is to love what you do. But sometimes all that we have to do is so much that you simply forget this, to love what you do. So always remember that everyone wants to make their life a celebration. How can we do that? Just forget the past. Just don't think about the future. Just focus on today and remind yourself every day that this day I am going to enjoy each and every second of it. I'm going to love what I'm going to do. And every day when you do that, your life definitely is going to become a celebration. So with that, now let us start with another very important topic of the nose, and that is atrophic rhinitis. Yes, many questions are asked from this topic and they are asked very, very frequently. So yes, we have to know this very nicely. So now let us see what is atrophic rhinitis. Now what comes to your mind when you think of atrophic rhinitis? Yes, the name tells you a lot. So it is atrophy in the nose. So yes, whenever we think of atrophic rhinitis, what should come to our mind is that everything in the nose has become atrophic. The mucosa, the turbinates, the submucinous tissue, everything has become atrophic, and because of that, the nasal cavities have become very wide, roomy. So when we remember that nasal cavities have become very wide, roomy, it will be easier for us to remember the cause, the presentation, and the management. So what are we going to remember whenever we think of atrophic rhinitis? Lot of atrophy leading to bilateral, wide, roomy nasal cavities. Roomy nasal cavities. And when we remember this, we will be able to know the cause. So what has happened that the nasal cavities have become very roomy? Yes, a lot of destruction. So it is usually secondary. It is usually secondary to a lot of tissue destruction. And why has the tissue destruction occurred? Yes, tissue destruction has occurred following either tissue destructive surgeries. Yes, surgeries in which the surgeon thought that, okay, this patient has a hypertrophic turbinate, so let me remove it. He removed the turbinate. Then he saw that, okay, this patient has a concabulosa, let me remove that. So most of the turbinates have been removed. Total turbinectomy has been done. Yes, do you remember what that is known as? Yes, after that, the nose has become empty. That is what is known as empty nose syndrome. Empty nose syndrome. So this is iatrogenic cause where because of surgery, a lot of destruction has been caused inside the nose. The nasal turbinates, the mucosa, they have a very important function. They have a function of the temperature regulation, humidification. So can you imagine when everything is being removed, how much damage it will do to the nose? Yes. The second important thing that we have to remember when we remember that it is following destruction is granulomatous condition. Granulomatous condition. Granulomatous conditions of the nose, TB, syphilis, lupus, leprosy, all of them present initially with symptoms that are very, very similar to atrophic rhinitis. Yes, so whenever you see the symptoms of a lot of atrophy in the nose, always rule out granulomatous conditions. And I am writing, have you noticed, I wrote the secondary causes first rather than the primary cause. Yes, because primary is idiopathic. So when you just remember that, okay, it is idiopathic, then you never think that it can follow granulomatous conditions. And if it is following granulomatous condition, unless and until you diagnose the patient with that and treat the patient of the granulomatous condition that the patient is having, will he recover? He will not recover. So always we have to remember that this lot of atrophy is following, it is secondary to destruction that can occur following surgery, and that history patient will give you. But the other thing which history patient will not give you, what you have to find out is that this can be secondary to some granulomatous condition. Granulomatous conditions cause a lot of destruction in the nose. Whenever you are seeing so much of destruction in the nose, think of granulomatous conditions, okay? And it can be primary. It can be also primary. The primary is idiopathic. Primary is idiopathic. Idiopathic means exact cause is not known. So there are many postulations here. So what are the important postulations that we have to remember is that it is following infection. Infection with Klebsiella ozanae. That is why this condition is also known as ozena. Atrophic rhinitis is also known as ozena because this is caused by Klebsiella ozanae. Now, another important etiological factor that has been postulated is a hormonal etiology. Hormonal etiology because it has been seen in females during pubertal age group. So it is seen in females at puberty. In females at puberty. And also the females who are deficient of estrogen. So estrogen deficiency. Estrogen deficiency. So the females who at puberty are deficient of estrogen, they are the ones who are likely to develop this primary atrophic rhinitis. Many nutritional deficiencies have been postulated here. Nutritional deficiencies have been postulated here. Okay, so whenever we think of wide roomy nasal cavities, what we have to think is that this has been caused following destruction. Destruction has followed either following, yes, quickly tell me, secondary to granulomatous condition or tissue destructive surgeries, or following the primary main etiological factor that has been a repeated question, yes, Klebsiella ozanae. That is why this condition is known as ozena. So now when we remember wide roomy nasal cavities, we also come to know what the presentation of the patient will be. Yes, so what will be the presentation? What do you think? When the nasal cavities have become very roomy, the patient will, all the air will go inside and the patient will tell, I'm able to breathe very, very nicely. Is that? No, the patient has nasal obstruction, bilateral complete nasal obstruction. Why? Yes, because when the nasal cavities have become very roomy, a lot of drying effect of the air will happen. A lot of air will go inside. That will, all the drying effect of the air will affect the nose because the mucosa is also atrophic there. So now that will lead to a lot of crusting. So there is bilateral nasal obstruction. There is bilateral nasal obstruction because of excessive crust. So here it is asked that in a patient of atrophic rhinitis, why is there nasal obstruction in spite of wide roomy nasal cavities? So it is because of excessive crusting. Now, this is the main disturbing complaint of the patient. But do you know what the main disturbing complaint of the relatives is? Now, in the patient's nose, when there is a lot of crust, and how is the immunity of this patient? The immunity of the patient is weak. So now there is secondary superinfection, and that leads to a very bad foul-smelling discharge from the nose of the patient. So there is very bad smell coming from the nose of the patient. In fact, the smell is so bad that if the patient is standing in the line of the OPD outside, you can smell it inside. It is so bad. But the patient is not aware of it. So the main disturbing complaint that the parents, the family, the relatives complain of is that there is a very bad smell coming from the nose of the patient, and when you ask the patient is not aware of that. So the patient has total anosmia. Yes, why anosmia? Yes, anosmia because in the nose what has happened? All the mucosa, so the olfactory mucosa has become atrophic, and whatever is left behind also, it is covered with crust, and the nerves have also become atrophic. So this type of anosmia where the patient himself is not aware of the foul smell is what is known as merciful anosmia, because he does not know what is happening and nobody will like to come close to that patient. So it is known as merciful anosmia. Patient has merciful anosmia. So these are the two main complaints of the patient. One is because the complaint of the patient, and that is nasal obstruction, and the other is complaint of the relatives. Now, how do we manage it? So again, when we remember that the nasal cavities have become wide roomy, whatever the cause, yes. So our aim will be first to find out whether it is secondary to anything so that we can treat that. If it is secondary to granulomatous conditions, we will treat that. Now, rest whatever is happening in the patient, why is that happening? Yes, because the cavities have become roomy. So there is excessive drying effect of air, there is crusting, there is infection, there is foul-smelling nasal discharge. So our second aim of management will be to close the nasal cavities. The roomy nasal cavities, we want to decrease in size. So we want to close the nasal cavities till the effect of the medication that we are given to the patient comes. Now, even if it is following any granulomatous conditions, we know TB, syphilis, lupus, leprosy, are they treated in a week? No, they take months to be treated. So till the response comes, if till that time the nasal cavities, they are going to improve, but slowly, gradually. So if till that time they are exposed to drying effects of air, repeatedly there will be crusting in the nose. If there is crusting, there will be infection, there will be foul-smelling nasal discharge. So till that time, till the effect comes, we want to stop all this drying effect, crusting and everything. For that, what we do is we close the nasal cavities. Yes, but just imagine that this patient who has come to you with such bad crust in the nose, will you close his nostril with all the crust? Yes, let us see how the crust inside the nose look like. Yes, can you see this? Yes, this is the endoscopic picture and this is present in both the nose. Bilateral, there are multiple crust and bad, dirty, greenish, yellowish discharge that you are seeing. Yes, so can you just close the nasal cavities with all this thing inside, with crust and infection inside? No. So our aim of management will be to close the cavities, but before that, to remove the crust. Yes, so how do we remove the crust? So the management will first aim at removing the crust. First is remove the crust. How do we remove the crust? Yes, that is by nasal douching. Alkaline nasal douching. Nasal douche. Now what is this alkaline nasal douche? Now here what is done is that in a bottle or in a syringe, a solution is put and that is pushed into the nostrils. So all the crust loosen up and they come out. Now what is asked in your exam is that what is the content of this nasal douche? This solution contains what? And that is a very common question in your exam. So yes, the alkaline nasal douche, just remember it contains 3 sodium in distilled water. Yes, distilled water with 3 sodium. Which 3 sodium? Sodium. Tell me the most common sodium that you use. Every day you use it so commonly as sodium chloride. So it is 2 parts sodium chloride, 1 part sodium bicarbonate, and 1 part sodium biborate. So now you have removed the crust with the help of nasal douching. Now what next? Yes, now we will treat the local infection. Local infection in the nose before we close the nose. So how do we treat the local infection inside the nostril? That is by chemicetine solution. This is the antibiotic solution that is put into the nostril. Chemicetine solution. And again, the chemicetine solution contents have to be remembered. How can we remember that? As COPD. What is COPD? C is chloramphenicol. Which is, yes, an antibiotic. O is estradiol. Yes, why estradiol? Is it seen in estrogen deficiencies? Yes. P is propylene glycol. That is a lubricant. And D. And what is D? D is vitamin D. Yes, because it is seen in nutritional deficiencies. Now, along with that, we use another antibiotic solution and that is 25% glucose in glycerine. So, what will this do? Yes, the glucose will get converted to lactic acid and that is proteolytic to the bacteria, and the glycerine is hygroscopic. So now once you have removed the crust, you have treated the local infection. Now what you will do is you will close the nasal cavities. So how do you close the nasal cavities? Yes, so that is the third part. You close the nasal cavities. For that, what you do is you raise a mucosal flap from the lateral wall and a flap of mucosa from the septum and then you suture it in between. This is what is known as Young's operation. Very, very commonly asked in your questions that Young's operation is done for, or bilateral nostrils are closed in with surgery. So yes, that is Young's operation. And nowadays what is done is instead of closing the nostrils completely, when the patient will have a sense that I'm not breathing through the nose at all. So to avoid that, what is done is a small opening is left in the center so that the patient can have some sense of nasal respiration. That is what is known as modified Young's. So in modified Young's, a 3 millimeters opening is left in the center. So that is what you need to know in atrophic rhinitis. Okay, so quickly keep your pens down. Okay, so you are sitting in the ENT OPD and here is a patient who has come to you with a complaint of bilateral nasal obstruction. Yes, and when the patient is sitting in front of you, you can smell a very bad smell and you ask the patient that why is this bad smell coming from your nose? And he tells you that no, I cannot smell it. What is this anosmia known as? Yes, merciful anosmia. So that increases the suspicion that why is he not able to smell? Is he having anosmia? You immediately do anterior rhinoscopy and what you see is lot of crust in the nose. Yes, you see an appearance like this, badly infected, bad discharge and lot of crust in the nose. Immediately what should come to your mind? Yes, atrophic rhinitis. And what are the things that you will like to investigate this patient for? Always remember, in any question where you see a lot of crust in the nose, if atrophic rhinitis is not in the choice, what are the things that should come to your mind? Always remember, yes, granulomatous condition. So it is not that when you are seeing crust, you will think it is atrophic rhinitis. That is done. You will investigate the patient for granulomatous conditions of the nose. So now you have investigated the patient and you have come to a diagnosis. Maybe it is some granulomatous condition. Maybe it is idiopathic where the exact cause is not known. Which bacteria has been postulated for the cause of idiopathic atrophic rhinitis? Yes, Klebsiella ozanei. That is why, what is the other name of atrophic rhinitis? Ozanea. This is seen most commonly in females or in males? In females, at what age? Pubertal age group. In which of females? Usually at puberty, who have deficiency of estrogen. Okay, so you are now planning to manage this patient. Yes, so you will manage the primary cause if there is any, and if it is not, still the management will aim at removing the nasal crust. The patient is symptomatic because of the crust, because of the bad infection of the nose. So now what you will aim at is, first is, yes, remove the crust. Removal of crust is by nasal douche. Tell me quickly the contents of the nasal douche. Tell me yes or no, if this is present or not. Yes. Sodium chloride, yes or no? Yes. Potassium iodide, yes or no? No? 3 sodium. Okay. Sodium biborate, yes. Glucose. Okay, now when glucose comes, then you are in a fix that we are using glucose in the management of atrophic rhinitis. We are, yes. But is that a component of the alkaline nasal douche? No. Glucose in the nose is used as 25% glucose in glycerine. It is not used in alkaline nasal douche. So in the alkaline nasal douche, we have distilled water which contains 3 sodium. Which 3 sodium? 2 parts sodium chloride, 1 part sodium bicarbonate, 1 part sodium biborate. Yes, so the patient will flush this solution into the nose. All the crust will loosen and it will come out. Okay, so now what next will you do? Yes, treat the local infection. Which solution do you use there? Chemistine solution. Quickly tell me the contents. COPD. What is COPD? C is chloramphenicol, estradiol, propylene glycol and vitamin D. Yes, I hope you are telling this before I am telling you this. Okay. What is the surgical management of atrophic rhinitis? Young's operation. What is modified Young's operation done for? For atrophic rhinitis, bilateral nostrils are completely closed in with surgery. In Young's operation, it is done for the treatment of which condition? For atrophic rhinitis, where the bacteria that has been postulated is Klebsiella ozanei. So all these have been questions that have been asked repeatedly in your exams. Now, there are 2 more granulomatous conditions that have been asked in your exams and you get confused between the 2. Why? Because both of them start with rhino. Yes, so you have the hint. Which 2 rhino? Yes, rhinosporidiosis, and that you confuse with rhinoscleroma. Whereas both of them are 2 ends of a pole. There is no similarity between these 2 except for the rhino. There is no other similarity. Yes, so let us first see what is rhinosporidiosis. Now, the rhinosporidiosis, is it a bacterial or a fungal infection? Did you say fungus? It used to be considered as a fungal infection, but it is no more considered as a fungal infection. Earlier, it was considered as a fungus. The organism is Rhinosporidium seaberi. Rhinosporidium seaberi, which is now classified as an aquatic protestant protozoa. Aquatic protestant protozoa. So this aquatic is very important. Yes, if you remember aquatic, you will be able to remember many things about this. Yes, if you remember aquatic, what are the things that you can remember? Yes, aquatic means, how did the patient acquire it? Aquatic means, yes, through waters. So, okay, by taking bath in infected waters, infected ponds, infected backwaters. How did this infection come into the water of the pond or the backwater? Yes, this is present. This sporangia is present in the dung of cattle, which means the patient will typically give you the history of taking bath in ponds frequented by animals. Is that clear? So, the aquatic will first tell us that, let us take the history of taking bath in ponds frequented by animals. So usually these will be farmers or people in villages where when you go in areas where there are a lot of backwaters and ponds, for example, yes, where do we have lots of waters? Yes, in the southern parts of the country. Yes, when you just have a drive, you will see that so many backwaters you are seeing, and in all of them you are seeing people of different ages taking bath. Along with that, cattle is also resting there. Yes, so the moment you see that next time, what is going to come to your mind? Yes, rhinosporidiosis. So history of taking bath in ponds frequented by animals. By animals. Yes, second thing you will think of is that this will be seen most commonly where there are a lot of water bodies. So this is most commonly, this is endemic in southern parts of the country. In fact, in India, it is endemic in many areas, out of which most common is the southern part of the country. So endemic in South India. In South India. And also, if you remember that it is aquatic, just tell me that if it is aquatic, patient got it while taking bath in ponds frequented by animals. Okay, so he went and he took bath there. How come this sporangia has special affinity only for the nose? It has gone only in the nose? No, it does not go only in the nose. Wherever there is any abrasion, be it in the nose, be it on the lips, oral mucosa, oropharynx, anywhere on the skin, anywhere, this sporangia will get inhabited and granulomas will develop. So it is not confined to nose and nasopharynx. But you will not study this condition anywhere else. You will study it only in ENT. Why? Yes, because the granulomas that are in the nose, they are very vascular. So they cause repeated epistaxis, and that brings the patient to the ENT OPD quite early, before the granulomas in the other places have not appeared also. So the third thing, if we remember aquatic, we will remember is that it is not confined to nose and nasopharynx. Not confined to nose and nasopharynx. Okay, so quickly tell me the mode of acquiring this. You will tell me, yes, bath in waters. Yes, water frequented by animals. Frequented by animals. We've already written that. Endemic in southern part of India. How will be the immunity of the patient? Do you think anybody, if we will go and take bath in such waters, we will acquire this infection? Yes, anybody will acquire. Because if there is any abrasion anywhere, then on the skin, on the external surface where the water is coming in contact with, anybody will happen, any age, child, adult. So don't think that this, I have to think only when this is the age, only when this is the sex, it is male, it is female, it is young, it is elderly. Anybody who has this history can develop this. And that is why it is not localized to one area in the nose, that it will arise only from the lateral wall or from the septum. It can arise from any part of the nose wherever the sporangia has got inhabited. So the immunity of the patient is immunocompetent. Immunocompetent. Yes, and the site can be any site. Site can be any site inside the nostril. It can be outside, anywhere. So now you are sitting in the ENT OPD, and here is a patient who has come to you with a complaint of recurrent epistaxis. Yes. So you examine the nostril of the patient, and what are you likely to find? If there is rhinosporidiosis, yes, this is a very vascular mass. So what you will find is a very red vascular polypoidal mass in the nose. Otherwise, are polyps of the nose vascular? Polyps, when you probe it, they bleed? No, polyps are grape-like, pale grape-like edematous mucosa. Yes, that is not at all vascular. So what you will see in the nostril of the patient is a red vascular mass, and over the red vascular mass, what you will see is the sporangia of this protozoa, and that will be white sporangia dots as white dots, and that will make it appear like a strawberry. Yes, in strawberry we have black dots, but this is the red vascular mass with white dots. This is known as a strawberry appearance. Yes, just see here. Maybe it is so much that it is coming out also, but many a times it is just small, and because of epistaxis, the patient is brought to you. So you have seen a mass in the nose, a vascular mass, and that typically appears like strawberry. It is known as a strawberry with white dots. Yes, that has been asked in your question, that strawberry mass with black dots. That was the incorrect choice. Yes, with white dots. Or this is also known as mulberry mass. So now you must be thinking, mulberry, we have heard it somewhere. Where did you hear it? Yes, mulberry turbinate. Mulberry turbinate, the hypertrophic turbinate was a mulberry turbinate. Is the hypertrophic turbinate and this very similar? And are you going to confuse a hypertrophic turbinate with this mulberry mass? Not at all. Just see here. Yes, the hypertrophic turbinate appears the white, this mass, like the white mass. Yes, this one. Whereas the vascular mass that you're talking about is the red mulberry when the mulberry becomes ripe. So this is the raw mulberry, which is the turbinate, and this is the ripe mulberry, which is the red vascular strawberry or the mulberry mass of rhinosporidiosis. And yes, you will have to inspect the patient completely, and what you will notice is you might find, just see here, you might find these sporangia, this mass, this similar mass in the oral cavity, in the oropharynx. And yes, you might find granulomas all over the skin of the patient. So what are these nodules? Yes, these nodules are granulomas that appear as skin nodules. Has been a question in your exam that a bleeding polypoidal mass in a 30-year-old male with skin nodules, most probable diagnosis is. Yes, so there is bleeding mass with skin nodules. Skin nodules are present. So how do we confirm now? Yes, our suspicion is very high. We will ask the history of the patient and he will tell that, yes, I take bath in ponds frequented by animals. You are seeing the red vascular strawberry or the mulberry mass. And now you want to confirm, should we take a biopsy? What are you thinking? Vascular, it will bleed. You take a biopsy anywhere, it will bleed. You take a biopsy on the tongue, on the skin, everywhere it will bleed. Yes. So in which conditions will we never take a biopsy? Yes, in the nose, there is one condition where we never take a biopsy, and that is angiofibroma. We will do that in detail later on. There it is angio and fibroma. Only blood vessels and fibrous tissue, muscular coat is not there. So retraction does not occur. So bleeding does not stop. Why I am reminding it to you here is because in rhinosporidiosis, there is no contraindication for biopsy. But usually biopsy is not needed only. Why? Because just take a nasal smear and in that you will find so many sporangia. But if at all biopsy is required, you can go for biopsy. And be it a nasal smear or a biopsy, what are you going to find? There is the sporangium filled with sporangiospores. Yes, can you see here? Yes, all these are the sporangium which are filled with the sporangiospores. So now you have confirmed that this is rhinosporidiosis. So how will you manage this patient? Okay, so yes, before management, when will you think of rhinosporidiosis? Is that very clear? Patient has come with, yes, blood-tinged nasal discharge. Complaint of blood-tinged nasal discharge. Nasal discharge or with epistaxis. With epistaxis. Examination, tell me the finding. On anti-rhinoscopy, what you see? Yes, the strawberry mass. Strawberry or the mulberry mass. Mulberry mass. On the skin, what you find is nodules. And you might find these granulomas elsewhere also on the skin or in the oral cavity, oropharynx, wherever the water can go inside. Yes, and you can visualize that. So how will you manage this? The main complaint of the patient is epistaxis, and that is because of the mass. So now, what are you going to do for the mass? What can you do for the mass? Yes, you can excise it. But what you have to remember is how you are going to excise it. Why? How you are going to excise? Now suppose this is the mass. Yes, this is the vascular mass and it is studded with so much sporangia. Okay, so now when you are cutting this mass, you are creating a raw area, raw surface below that, and this mass is studded with sporangia. So wherever the sporangia will fall, and if there is a raw area, if there is an abrasion, then again it will get inhabited and this will recur. So you have to be very careful that not to handle too much with the mass. So what you do is that you go for a wide excision. Yes, you try not to touch the mass so much, and the base you do a wide excision and you just remove it. So you go for a wide excision, and after widely excising, you cauterize the base so that if at all anything is fallen below, will get cauterized. So wide excision plus cauterization of base. Cauterization of base. So that will also stop the bleeding and that will also cauterize whatever is being left behind. And in the post-operative period, to decrease the chance of recurrence, because yes, no matter how well you excise it, chances of recurrence is very high here. So to decrease the chance of recurrence, we give dapsone. Dapsone is given for the management. Yes. So is that very clear? So when will you think of rhinosporidiosis? Patient has come with, yes, epistaxis. In the nose, what is appearance? Strawberry or mulberry mass. Yes. How will you confirm? Biopsy. You have confirmed. Or nasal smear. How will you manage this? Quickly tell me. Yes. Wide excision, cauterization of the base, and to decrease the chance of recurrence, dapsone. Now the other granulomatous condition which you usually confuse rhinosporidiosis with is rhinoscleroma, and as I told you, there is no similarity between the two except for the rhino. Yes. So rhinoscleroma, what is this? This is a bacterial granuloma. That was an aquatic protozoa. Yes, this is a bacterial granuloma, and this is caused by which bacteria? By Klebsiella rhinoscleromatis. Rhinoscleromatis. Klebsiella leads to any other granulomatous condition of the nose? Klebsiella. Yes, Klebsiella ozanae. That led to atrophic rhinitis. This is Klebsiella rhinoscleromatis, and this is also known as Frisch bacillus. Frisch bacillus. After the scientists who discovered it, in one of your exams, one of the choices was in rhinoscleroma that this is caused by gram-negative bacillus. Yes, so Klebsiella rhinoscleromatis, is it gram-negative? Of course it is. Klebsiella is gram-negative. And rhinosporidiosis was endemic in southern areas where there is a lot of water bodies. Whereas this is opposite. This is endemic in northern parts of the country. This is more common in North India. So now how will a patient of rhinoscleroma present? In which patient will you think that this can be rhinoscleroma? Yes, did I tell you that all the granulomatous conditions, yes, all these granulomatous conditions, they present like atrophic rhinitis, a lot of crusting of the nose, lot of destruction inside the nose. Yes, so that is exactly how patients of rhinoscleroma will present with. So the first presentation is atrophic stage, and that is exactly like atrophic rhinitis, lots of crust in the nose. Yes, always remember this in any question, crust, think of atrophic rhinitis or granulomatous conditions. So the patient has come to you with nasal obstruction. You examine the nose and you find lots of crust in the nose, and you forgot that atrophic rhinitis like features can be secondary to granulomatous condition, and you think that okay, atrophic rhinitis is what this patient is having and atrophic rhinitis is idiopathic, so anyway nothing can be done. You tell the patient that do nasal douching and you give chemistry solution, you give 25% glucose and glycerine. Now if that is following some condition, some granulomatous condition, just doing that, will it help? No, it will not help. So the patient comes to you in some months and he tells you that, see doctor, you told me to do all that and I've been doing all that, but now just have a look at my nose, see what has happened in my nose. And when you examine, yes, what you see is a lot of granulomas all over the nose. Yes, and sometimes you can see the typical, can you see this appearance? Yes. So just by appearance, you cannot diagnose that this is rhinoscleroma. Is that very clear? Yes, this appearance can be of any carcinoma. This can be any granulomatous condition of the nose, can cause a lot of destruction in the nose. Yes, so also this, just see here, you can see, can you see a lot of crust? The nose is filled with crust. So when you see a lot of crust inside the nose, yes, then you think that yes, this can be granulomatous condition, and then you think, okay, I made a mistake. I should have investigated this patient for granulomatous condition. I should have taken a biopsy when the patient initially came to me. Yes, so this appearance of the nose, because of granulomas all over the nose, gives the nose a very hard woody appearance. That is what is known as hard nose, or it is known as woody nose, or it is known as Hebra nose. Yes, so many times when they are asking about rhinoscleroma, they just ask what is the management of hard nose, what's the management of Hebra nose, what is the management of woody nose. So all this, when you hear, you immediately know hard woody because of a lot of granulomas on the external nose, and you will think of rhinoscleroma. So you will take a biopsy, and what you will find on biopsy is macrophages which are laden with bacteria. So these macrophages, yes, a better picture we have here, these are known as Mikulicz cells. What are the Mikulicz cells? Yes, when it is asked in the exam, what exactly are Mikulicz cells? M for Mikulicz, M for, remember, it is macrophages. These are macrophages laden with phagocytosed bacteria. And also what you will see is plasma cells with eosinophilic inclusion bodies, and they are known as Russell bodies. So when you see Mikulicz cells and Russell bodies, you confirm that this is a patient of rhinoscleroma. Now, if the patient has come to you in the atrophic stage, you can take a biopsy that time also. If the patient has come to you in the next stage, that is the stage of hard nose or woody nose, yes, still you can take the biopsy, but still you are a little late. And it is also possible that the patient has not come to you early, only patient has come to you very late. Yes, in the last stage, what happens is lot of fibrosis occurs inside the nose, and that is what is the cicatricial stage. So the third stage is cicatricial stage, where all the nose gets deformed, and that is what is known as the tapir nose. Tapir nose, yes. So in any stage, the management has to be done with biopsy. And what is the diagnostic biopsy findings is Mikulicz cells and Russell bodies, very, very frequently asked. Yes. Once was the question given, the picture of nose was given, a lot of destruction of the nose was shown there. And definitely by seeing that, you cannot just make out that this is rhinoscleroma. You know that lot of destruction means some granulomatous condition. But along with that, the biopsy was given, and it was written that on biopsy, macrophages are seen with laden with bacteria. Yes, so that tells you that this is Mikulicz cells. The plasma bodies, the plasma cells with inclusion bodies tells you that this is Russell bodies. So now you have confirmed what will be the management. Yes, the management will be like the management of any other granulomatous condition. For example, tell me the management of TB. Rifampicin, streptomycin, INH. Okay, tell me of leprosy. Leprosy, dapsone. Okay, now, is this also a granulomatous condition? Yes. So, the antibiotics that we give here are similar to what we give in other granulomatous conditions. So, yes, the management here is streptomycin. We give the patient streptomycin. We give the patient tetracycline. We give the patient rifampicin. And a recent inclusion is we give the patient ciproflox. And yes, there is so much of fibrosis. Steroids are given here to reduce the fibrosis. Steroids are also given. And for how long will you give this medication? We know that for granulomatous conditions, usually whenever we give medication, it is for a prolonged period. In TB, we give it for how much? Yes, 6 months. Leprosy also long time. So when we have to give medication here, we give it for a prolonged period of at least 6 weeks. It is given for at least 6 weeks. 6 weeks, and after 6 weeks also you do not immediately stop the medication just thinking that the 6 weeks is over. You again take a biopsy. Yes, and you get the culture done. And if on culture you see that yes, it is not grown anymore, you cannot grow this bacilli anymore, only then you stop. Well, the cultures are negative, only then you stop the medication, because otherwise it can lead to a lot of destruction, it can recur. So you give for 6 weeks or till the culture is negative. Till the culture is negative. So will you ever confuse a rhinosporidiosis with rhinoscleroma ever? Did we see that they are so different? Yes, what is the appearance in rhinosporidiosis? Yes, that is a red strawberry or a mulberry mass. Whereas in rhinoscleroma, what is the appearance? Yes, lot of granulomas. That is what is known as hard nose or woody nose. What is the management of hard nose? Management of hard nose. Yes, streptomycin, tetracycline, rifampicin, steroids, and ciproflox. What is the diagnosis of hard nose by? Diagnosis of hard nose is by? Yes, diagnosis of hard nose is by biopsy. What is the biopsy finding which will tell you, yes, this is a rhinoscleroma? Yes, you will see macrophages and plasma cells. What are the macrophages known as? Mikulicz cells. What are the plasma cells here known as? Russell bodies. Now, these three conditions of the nose, atrophic rhinitis, rhinosporidiosis and rhinoscleroma, are commonly asked in your exam, out of which most commonly asked is atrophic rhinitis. Now, there are some other granulomatous conditions which are not as frequently asked as these three, but yes, they are occasionally asked, and yes, we should know about them. One of them is granulomatosis with polyangiitis. Yes, this is the now name of Wegener's. Wegener's was the earlier name. Now, this is not localized to the nose. It involves three systems. Can you quickly tell me which three systems? Yes, it involves the upper respiratory. It involves the lower respiratory, that is the lung. and it also involves renal. So there will be features of involvement of all these three systems. And here the nose is involved very, very commonly. Around 80% of the patients have involvement of nose, and in the nose, guess and tell me what the patient will have, what complaints. The moment you know it's a granulomatous condition, yes, by now it should be by heart for you. Yes, lot of crust in the nose. So what you will find in the nose is crust. That will lead to nasal obstruction. Yes, also what you will find in the nose is maybe when the crust come out, patient will complain of blood-tinged nasal discharge. So maybe that is the complaint that the patient has come to you with. Blood-tinged nasal discharge. Blood-tinged discharge. Blood-tinged nasal discharge. Also in the nose, the granulomatous conditions cause a lot of destruction, and that destruction can be of the septum also, leading to a perforation of the septum. Perforation of septum. Yes, perforation of septum again. So whenever you are seeing a lot of crust in the nose, think of granulomatous conditions. Whenever you are seeing perforation of the septum, again think of granulomatous condition. So here all the granulomatous condition, they can cause perforation of the cartilaginous part. Yes, remember that. TB, syphilis, lupus, leprosy, all the granulomatous condition can cause perforation in the cartilaginous part. There are two granulomatous conditions that we need to remember which can cause perforation in the bony part also. Yes, one of them is this Wegener's. So here it is bony plus cartilaginous. Cartilaginous plus bony. So also what you will see is because of a lot of destruction in the nose, the septal cartilage gets destroyed. There is also saddling of the nose. So there is also saddling of the nose. Yes, here don't think that this is a hump. Okay, just this is a supratip depression. Like this. Yes, because this area, the septum has got destroyed. So whenever just see the nose, can you see the nose of this patient? So much destruction is there. So whenever you see any picture, any image-based question, lot of destruction of the nose. Yes, it can be either a carcinoma, either tumor, or it can be granulomatous condition. So in the nose, these can be the complaints that the patient can come to you with, or these can be the complaints that can be mentioned in your question. Lot of crusting, nasal discharge, blood-tinged discharge, perforation, saddling of the nose, all this bring your mind to that this can be a granulomatous condition. So now if it is Wegener's, if it is granulomatosis with polyangiitis or not, for that you will have to look for the involvement of other systems also. So because of the involvement of lower respiratory, that is lungs, what can be the symptoms? The patient can have hemoptysis. Patient can have dyspnea, and the CT radiological findings will show pulmonary infiltrates. There can be pulmonary nodules. Yes, you will definitely do this condition in great detail in medicine, but this is just I am telling you this because the nasal involvement is so common here that many a times the presentation of the patient, whenever question is given, will start with nasal complaints. Yes. So when you are seeing this complaints, what should come to your mind? Look for other things. Look for lung involvement. Yes, the other thing that you have to look for is renal involvement. In the renal involvement, what is seen here is glomerulonephritis, RPGN, rapidly progressive glomerulonephritis. And because of the renal involvement, there is edema, there is hypertension, and the urine will show the RBC cast will be present. So all this, if it given in the question, will make you diagnose that this is a patient of granulomatosis with polyangiitis. And how are you going to confirm it? So diagnosis is made by C-ANCA, which is present in 85% of the individuals, and by biopsy. What do you find on biopsy is necrotizing granulomatous vasculitis. So yes, this is a vasculitis. It's a polyangiitis. Angiitis means vascular inflammation of the blood vessels. So here it is necrotizing granulomatous vasculitis, what you find on the biopsy. And also these patients, sometimes, very rarely, you can also see gingival hyperplasia, very rare gingival hyperplasia, and that is typically known as strawberry appearance. This is a very rare finding of granulomatosis with polyangiitis, but if present, this is pathognomic. This is strawberry gingiva. Again, another important thing, just remember that whenever you are seeing strawberry in the question, always remember again that has to be some granulomatous condition. Yes, because of the increased vascularity, because of hyperplasia, and there is granulation tissues, petechiae, all that will lead to strawberry appearance of the gingiva here, and this is pathognomic of granulomatosis with polyangiitis. So now once you have confirmed by biopsy, then you go for the management, and this management here is mainly by steroids, and yes, if required, you also give cyclophosphamide. Now another granulomatous condition which involves the nose, very rarely, only in 1 to 4%, is sarcoidosis. Now what we will be doing in sarcoidosis, not the complete general involvement, because this involves the nose very rarely, and nasal complaints might rarely be given to you here. But yes, we need to know here that sarcoidosis can involve the nose. Why? Because one presentation is an image-based question of your exam. Yes, what is that? Yes, before we come to that presentation, you will tell me everything about what will be the nasal presentation. Now I will not tell you. I have told you this is a granulomatous condition. Even I have not told you, you know that this is granulomatous condition, sarcoidosis. Yes, it involves mainly the lungs, but it involves systemic, other systems also. So yes, in the nose, if present, what can be the symptoms? Yes, crusting leading to nasal obstruction, blood-stained nasal discharge, perforation of the septum, saddling of the nose, everything, all this, yes, can be present here. And in the external nose, there is sometimes an appearance like this. This is what is known as lupus pernio. This appearance is known as lupus pernio. So this is violaceous affection of the skin of the nose and the cheek, skin of nose and cheek. And yes, this is asked as an image-based question of your exam, and this presentation is given, and what is asked is what is the diagnosis. So this is lupus pernio. Either lupus pernio is given in the choice, or what is given is sarcoidosis. Now also these patients, when you examine the nostril inside, you can find strawberry appearance of the nasal mucosa. So nasal mucosa can be strawberry appearance. So I told you, right? Crusting in the nose, granulomatous condition. Strawberry appearance, granulomatous condition. A lot of destruction in the nose, perforation, saddling, all that granulomatous condition. So nasal mucosa appears strawberry. Now in sarcoidosis, there is another presentation termed condition which is asked in your exam, and that is Hereford syndrome. That has got nothing to do with the nose, but I am doing it here because sarcoidosis rarely affects the ENT, but if it involves, then these are the things that we need to know so that it is together in one place. I am telling it to you here itself. This is what is known as Hereford syndrome. Hereford syndrome. Now what is this Hereford syndrome? This is bilateral parotid enlargement, facial palsy, facial nerve palsy. Can you see in this patient? There is facial paralysis of which side? Can you make out which side? Is it the right side or the left side? Yes, just see the right side, the lip is not moving. It is the right side facial palsy. So facial nerve palsy, and along with that, anterior uveitis. And how to diagnose sarcoidosis if it has presented with nose complaint or otherwise also? How do you diagnose? Yes, you diagnose with a biopsy. And what you see in biopsy is non-caseating granulomas. It is a granulomatous condition. So what you see is non-caseating granulomas. And you will manage this by, again, you give steroids and you give hydroxychloroquine. So management is by steroids and by hydroxychloroquine. Hydroxychloroquine we were using very commonly recently, no? For what? COVID? We used that initially. Later on the reports came that it is not useful. Yes, so same here, we are using this. We are using hydroxychloroquine and we are using steroids here. So this will be dealt, complete sarcoidosis will be dealt in great detail in medicine. But here, yes, these are the ENT manifestations, and in the nose, what we find is the image-based question of your exam. So yes, sarcoidosis can affect the nose. Yes, granulomatosis with polyangiitis can affect the nose. Also, TB can affect the nose. And in TB, what affects the nose is usually the low-grade skin affection of the TB, low-grade cutaneous TB, and that is what is lupus vulgaris. And what you see in lupus vulgaris is not only affection of the nose, whole of the body can be involved, any area of the skin can be involved, and wherever the involvement is present, what is asked here in your exam, what you need to know is what is the type of nodules that you see is apple jelly nodules. These are known as apple jelly nodules. And how do you diagnose it? Yes, they do not blanch on pressure. They are brownish nodules which do not blanch on pressure. Do not blanch on pressure. So it can involve any area, and usually it is not localized to the nose. So management is here ATT. You go for you give antitubercular therapy here. And just a word about involvement of nose in syphilis. Yes. So again, syphilis can affect multisystem. It can affect the nose also. Yes, syphilis, whether it is congenital or acquired, there can be involvement of nose. Now in congenital syphilis, what is the presentation? What is the involvement of the nose? Yes, that is what is known as snuffles. What is that? That is a catarrhal rhinitis. This is seen at around 3 weeks to 3 months time after birth, 3 weeks to 3 months time, anytime. During this duration, the catarrhal rhinitis can be present, and later on, late congenital syphilis presents as gamma. And in acquired syphilis, there are 3 stages. We already know it is primary, secondary or tertiary. The most common type of syphilis that is seen in the nose is tertiary syphilis. But yes, involvement can occur in primary and secondary as well. Now, in primary syphilis, what you see in the nose is what you see anywhere else also. What you see is a chancre. What is this? This is a painless, not painful at all, painless indurated lesion, indurated ulcer, and this resolves by itself, and the patient after some time goes into secondary syphilis, where in the nose what you can see is snail track ulcers, and these are the secondary syphilis is usually the one that is least seen in the nose. Yes, and this also resolves by its own, after which the patient can go into a latent phase which can remain for months or years, and then comes the tertiary syphilis where gammas are seen on the nose or inside of the nose, and that is the most common type of syphilis that is seen in the nose. So here what you see is gammas, and yes, that is a question of your exam when it is asked. When it is asked in your exam, what is asked is either the congenital, the catarrhal rhinitis, what is that known as? Yes, that is snuffles. And the second thing that is asked is that if acquired, then what is the most common type of syphilis that is seen in the nose? So that is the tertiary syphilis. You see the gamma stage. And again, like any granulomatous condition, tell me what can the presentation be? Yes, again, there can be a lot of destruction of the nose. There can be crusting in the nose, blood taint, nasal discharge. Can there be septal perforation? Yes or no? Yes, there can be septal perforation. And I have told you all granulomatous conditions cause perforation of which part of the septum? Cartilaginous or bony? Cartilaginous. Now let me change this question. All granulomatous conditions affect which part of the septum, anterior or posterior? The same question has been asked in a different way. Yes? So anterior or posterior? Cartilaginous or bony? You told me cartilaginous. So anterior or posterior? Cartilage is what? Anterior. Yes. Except for syphilis. Syphilis causes most commonly bony involvement. Vaginous also causes bony involvement. In syphilis, the most common involvement, the most common site of perforation is usually bony. So yes, you see gamma that can be on the external nose or inside also, and yes, in the perforation, it is most common site is the bony perforation. And like any granulomatous condition, there can be saddling of the nose. There can be saddle nose. Okay, so now, yes, just keep your pens down. Yes, you are sitting in the ENT OPD. Patient has come to you with a complaint of bilateral nasal obstruction. And when you examine the nose, what you find is lot of crust in the nose. There is merciful anosmia. Diagnosis: atrophic rhinitis. Okay, lot of crust in the nose. And when you take a biopsy, what you find is Mikulicz cells and Russell bodies. Now, what's the diagnosis? Rhinoscleroma. Okay, lot of crust in the nose. Along with that, the patient has dyspnea. The patient has RBC cast in the urine. Now, yes, that is granulomatosis with polyangiitis. The patient has involvement of the nose. The patient has dyspnea. Patient has hemoptysis. There are pulmonary infiltrates and nodules seen on CT. And along with that, there is a volaceous affection of the skin of the nose and the cheek. Now, sarcoidosis. What is that volaceous appearance known as? That is known as lupus pernio. What is cutaneous TB known as? Yes, lupus vulgaris. Okay, so that is lupus pernio. This is lupus vulgaris. Which syphilis is seen most commonly in adults? Primary, secondary, or tertiary? Tertiary syphilis. Yes, what stage is that? The gamma stage. In infants, in congenital syphilis, early congenital syphilis presents as snuffles. Late congenital syphilis presents as gamma in the nose. The syphilis causes perforation most commonly of which part of the septum? Anterior or posterior? Posterior. Cartilaginous or bony? Bony. Yes. Rest all the granulomatous condition, they affect most commonly which part of the septum? Yes, the cartilaginous part, anterior part. Vagus can affect anterior part, posterior part, or both. Yes, it can affect both. So that is what you need to know in the granulomatous conditions. Strawberry mass in the nose. Strawberry or mulberry mass in the nose. Diagnosis is rhinosporidiosis. Okay, 30-year-old male with pink polypoidal vascular mass in the nose with skin nodules. Yes, again it is rhinosporidiosis. Strawberry gingiva. Yes, granulomatosis with polyangiitis. Strawberry appearance of the nasal mucosa along with lupus pernio. Yes, that is sarcoidosis. Yes, so that is what you need to know in granulomatous conditions of the nose. Now quickly finish your questions.